Okay. I believe we're on Tezayin Amar Aleph by the two dots. Kainas Atzma and Bishanim. Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. As of our learning, we should have the base of English. We're talking about an Eved Ivri, a Jewish slave. We're talking about how he's acquired the last 2 days. Now we're going to talk about how he goes free. So we know he goes free after 6 years. We know he goes free by Yovel. We know that he can also buy himself free. He comes up with money. He can pay for the remaining years that he was really supposed to be working for the master. So it says, how do we know that he goes? How do we know that he goes free after 6 years? It says in the pasuk, 6 years he works, and on the 7th year he goes free. Yovel. How does we know that he goes free by Yovel? It says another pasuk, that he works for until the Yovel. The Quran Kesef. How do you know that he goes free? Because he pays, he diminishes the amount of years that he still has to work. He pays for that what he was given the money for. So Merchizkia Damakra Vehefta. It says Vehefta that this is talking about the Amma Evriya, that she can get redeemed. Malamid Shemagareya P'dirna V'yotzi. It means that you calculate how much she was still supposed to work, and you give that money and that value, and then she goes free. Okay. Tana, it's taught in a brisa. The brisa says more than what the Mishnah says. The brisa says that she goes free with money, valuables. It's called Shavah Kesef, worth of money, and also with a document. The Mishnah didn't mention the document. The Gemara says, Bishlema Kesef. I understand that she goes free with money. It's interesting. It didn't say Hefta like it said, like Chizkiah said, whatever the case is. The Shavah Kesef, we know that money works. Shavah Kesef also works. Nami Yashav Gulasim Rachman Rabbi Shavah Kesef. I have a pasuk that says that any valuables are the same as money. So if she can go free with money, she can go free with the value of money, which is in valuables and in movable items. What are you talking about with the document? If you're talking about that he writes a document that he owes the master money, which basically means he's going free and he's going to give him the money. But there's a document there to collect it. So Hainu Kesef, that's just like money. So he's going free with money. He's not going free with the document. He's going free with the money that he now it turns into a debt. Ella must be shikhr. It must be that we're talking about that he goes free with a document. It means a deed of manumission. That you write a document that says that he's free, not without any money, just a document. Star Lamali, why do you need a document to set a Jewish slave free? Let him say in front of two people, Zil, just go. Just walk out. The door's open, go. It's not a slave that he's owned, that you have to do an action to set him free. He just owes money, so he's working to work it off, but you don't need a deed of manumission to set him free. Inami bapi beidina zil, you say in front of the court, go. What does it mean, go? It means that you don't have to pay me anything. If you're ready to forgo on the debt that he owes, so then just tell him, okay, you know what, I forgive you. Amarava Zaysimeres says this teaches us that Eved Ivri Gufikanoi. It's not so. The Eved Ivri is actually owned by the master. It's not that he just has a debt, and it's not just a monetary thing. There's actually an acquisition in the person. How does that transfer? It's like in his passport. It's not in the bank records. It's in the birth records. It changes his who the person is, what his ownership, what his subject of. Even if the master is going to say, you don't owe me the money anymore, that doesn't mean that you changed not his nationality, but you changed his status. It doesn't mean you changed his status. In order to change his status, that you're going to need an actual document. Now, the truth is that you don't really need the document. If there's a transfer of money, so the money can do that transfer, just like a woman could get married with money, or a woman can get divorced with a document. So too, the Eved can be transferred out back to himself, either with money or with the document. Yeah. Girain means to deduct. So you deduct what was already worked and pay the rest back.
So how could it be that he's Machal and it's not Machal?
Why is it not? Because there's much more than just the monetary issue. You still have to get rid. You see, if you actually transfer money, so that's a kinyan. Yeah, but that's not a kinyan. I can't make the ring that I'm about to give to my wife hefker and then say, with this ring, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm just going to make it hefker. You should be married. I didn't give her anything. But with the slave, I cannot. No, you can't. You can't, without any transaction, the slave doesn't go free. Yeah. Taisus asks, what happened to the Mishnah? Right? Taisus says, Mishnah doesn't mention star. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not asking Taisus' question.
Okay.
Taisus' question mentions that hefker is possible, which means that you can't do Machal.
1 second. What are you telling me? Amarava, Taisus?
Namely about the trade.
Oh, that's it. Oh, okay. I have to go through that slowly.
Yeah, we worked hard on it.
Taisus says, what happened to if star works? Why didn't the Mishnah mention star? Taisus kasha. Taisus says, the Mishnah is telling me, star the document. The Mishnah is telling me that the slave goes free without the permission of the master. In other words, even against the will of the master. 6 years are up, the guy walks out. The master says, no, please. Doesn't matter, he's free. The document is the master's writing the document. So that the Mishnah doesn't need to tell me that he goes free with the document. Okay.
So it's like a contract?
No, the contract makes it look like it's a monetary thing. Here we're talking about that there's emancipation of the slave. Yeah, besides for the monetary issue.
Is it a good example that he had to free the slave to comfort him? The status changes.
That is a non-Jewish slave. We're dealing with a Jewish slave.
Oh,
yeah.
That one becomes
That's something else. That over there we know that non-Jewish slave is owned by the master. Now we're discussing, is the Jewish slave owned by the master? Or is it just a worker? We're saying that the Jewish slave is owned by the master.
And regarding the true, you said that it's not, it's like a temporary thing. The Jewish slave
does not eat truma.
Does not, it's like not really owned, it's like a temporary.
That's a very good question. Hillel is asking, if Gufay Kanai, so why can't the Jewish slave eat truma? Only the non-Jewish slave is allowed to eat truma. It's a very good question. It says clearly in the Torah, but I got to figure that out.
The rest of the answer.
Yeah.
You can exit that one.
It's only 10 to 6. Yeah, take the rest of the day off.
Enjoy. Enjoy stuff.
Okay. It's a good question. Well, okay. Now we're up to Yisera Lavam Evriya. there's one other way for the slave to go free if it's a maidservant, that she can go free with simanim. That means when she reaches puberty. Amar Rish Lakish says, this statement of Rish Lakish is going to take us through the next page of Gemara as well. Rish Lakish comes up with the Chiddush. He says that a Jewish slave girl, she's sold by her father, and she's sold into slavery. If her own father dies, she goes free from that slavery. He has a kal v'chaymer. When she reaches puberty, is she still under her father? Yeah. Her father's still her father. What is it relevant for? Inheritance or other things?
She could walk out of the slavery.
But when she reaches puberty, she's not a slave anymore. So, Misa, death, that takes her out of her father if the father dies. That takes her out of the father's jurisdiction, which means that the inheritors don't keep her income. So she's not under the father's jurisdiction when the father dies. So, is it not a kal v'chaymer that she should leave the master? If the father's death is so strong that it can even take her out of the father's jurisdiction, so for sure should take her out of the master's jurisdiction. Simanim, which doesn't, signs of puberty, which don't take her out of, which is not so strong, which don't take her out of the father's jurisdiction, but will still take her out of the master's jurisdiction. So something that will take her out of the father's jurisdiction, which is the father's death, for sure should take her out of the master's jurisdiction. Okay, so therefore he says that if the father dies, she goes free from the master. We're going to have a bunch of questions on this opinion of Rish Lakish, and in the end, we're going to say to you that we're going to have a strong question on it.
If that's the case, it makes the master never retained her. Even though her father sold her, she remains under her father's jurisdiction. It's like it's a lease.
No, the father dies and she goes free. But just like everything goes free, it's not like a woman's married, but if he divorces her, so she goes free. If he dies, she goes free. It's not like so they're not married. No, they were married, and it stopped. Okay. Meisvei, where's the question? Meisvei Ravashi. Ravashi has a question. It says in the Mishnah, that there's one way that the Amma Evriya, the Jewish slave girl, goes free, which is in addition to how a Jewish slave man goes free. What is that? It's signs of puberty. She goes free with signs of puberty. There's only one way. That's what the Mishnah said. The Misa, if Rish Lakish is correct, it's 2 ways. The death of the father would set the Jewish maid servant free, maid girl free, and it won't set a Jewish slave man free. The Gemara says, Tana v'shaya. This is what the Mishnah does when it doesn't list everything. It says that it wasn't itemizing every possible case. It was giving you examples. So that was one example, but there are others. Gemara, whenever it says, okay, you're just giving me examples, but you're not listing, you're not giving me a full list, then that only works if you leave out more than one item. If you leave out only one item, then we say that you were trying to give me a full list. And why do you leave out that one item? If you left out at least 2 items, then we can say that maybe you were ton of a shire. You weren't giving me an exhaustive list. Well, my shire, the high shire, what did you leave out? That you're going to leave out Misa Sa'av. It says shire Misa Sa'adan. You left out if the master dies. That's right. What happened to the master dying? You know the halacha that if the master dies, the Jewish slave girl goes free. She does not work for the master's family. Gemara says, "Imisha misa sa'adan lav shiru." That's not a good. That's not a good point. You can't bring that up. Why? Because what would you say? You would say that a Jewish slave goes free with now we learned that there's a document as well, but a Jewish slave goes free with money or with yoivel. No. A Jewish slave goes free with 6 years, yoivel, or with paying the money. And Amavriya has an addition, she goes free with Shemanim. What do you want to add? You want to add, and she also goes free with the death of the Adon, but it's not true, the death of the master, because when the master dies, there's a Jewish slave that also goes free. Not every Jewish slave, but the Jewish slave that his ear was pierced, he goes free also when the master dies. He says, I'm staying here because I love the master. The master dies, he goes free. So that won't be an addition for the Jewish girl. The Kivan Dekanami Beish, because it applies also to a man. Which man? The Nirtza, the one whose ear was pierced. So like Tani, so that's why it's not going to say it. Belanisni, okay, so if that's the case, so why did you leave out, according to Rish Lakish, why did you leave out the death of the father? So Tana Davar Sheish like Kitzvah, Tani Davar Shein like Kitzvah like Tani. We only said something that was on a schedule. Schedule is 6 years. Yovel. That was the way, that's what we're talking about. We weren't saying things that weren't on a schedule. So the death of the father was not on the schedule. 1 second. When she reaches puberty, it's not on the schedule. That's whenever it happens. It's not a 6 years or a yovel. It says, there is a schedule. There is a starting point that only when she has signs of puberty after a certain age. If she has signs of puberty early, then that doesn't count. So which means that there is a certain schedule, a starting point, that from then, those simanim will count. So that's why simanim is on the schedule. And therefore, this could be an answer of why it doesn't say Misas Av, the death of the father, even though that's one of the ways, but we just weren't talking about things that weren't on schedules. This has a schedule. Tanya, yeah. It has a schedule because it can only start from age 12. If she has signs of puberty before 12, it doesn't mean anything.
Means growth hormones work.
According to Rish Lakish, yeah. Tanya was taught in a brayse. Then Tesha Shanim, if a boy is 9 years old, Shevish Tesaris, that he has 2 pubic hairs. Shuma, we say that that's like hairs that are on a mole, which are not really considered signs of puberty. It's a different type of hair. It's nothing. If he's from 9 until 12 and he has these types of hairs, it says Shuma. That's considered the hairs that are on a mole, and it's not really puberty. But Rabbi says no, that's a good sign. Means, and the hairs are still there; they didn't even fall out. But never, at the first of Tanakama holds it's nothing. Rabbi Yehuda says it is something. Once he's 13 years old, and then he has signs of puberty, so that's just a sign, which means that there is a schedule to when puberty works, and that's only from. How do you know that applies to girls? I think actually the Brisa goes on and Nida and actually lists it says it continues with the girls. But, yeah.
I can't hear you.
On the halacha section here, it says if a girl develops 2 pubic hairs before turning 12, or if a boy grows 2 hairs before the age of 13, they're considered merely the hairs of the mole.
The simanim that do not apply are only here, or it applies to all the other simanim as well. I met a child whose father said that she started puberty at 2 years old.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah. That happens. They do. They today they I forget what it's called. Early puberty. They give shots for otherwise. Whatever. But then I think it could stunt the growth. So then they have to give growth hormones together. Anyway, it happens. So, so what we're saying here is that it doesn't mean that they're an adult just because they have signs of puberty, right? It has to be at the right age. Okay. So we have a question on Rish Lakish that why didn't it list it? And we gave an answer that it didn't list it because it's not saying, oh, why didn't it list Misasav? It's not saying things that don't have a schedule. We don't know when the father's going to die. Okay. Master Reb Sheshis. Sheshis has another question on Rish Lakish. Reb Sheshis' question is like this. Says, what's a Mishnah? I think, a Brisa. Reb Shimon says, there's 4 people that you have to give them severance pay. 4 types of slaves. They have to get severance pay when they leave. Gimel be'ish, v'gimel be'isha. 3 of them are by a man, and 3 of them are by a woman. That does not add up to 4. Okay? You can't say that there's 4 for one of them, which means like this. There's 2 that are overlapping. And then there's a 3rd one for the man, and then there's a 3rd one for the woman, which is a total of 4. 2 plus 1 plus 1.
Yes, that's 4.
So what are the 2? What the Gemara thinks is like this. It says one of the ways that a Jewish girl goes free is when she reaches puberty, and one of the ways that a man goes free, if his ear was pierced, he goes free with the death of the master. What we're thinking right now is like this. What would be the 2 ways that are equal by both of them? That would be 6 years. Working for 6 years, they both go free, right? The Jewish girl and the Jewish slave. And the Yoivel, they both go free, the Jubilee. Then you have the death of the master. If it was a man whose ear was pierced, you don't do ear piercing by the girl. So let her stay longer. Or if it's the girl, she goes free with signs of puberty. Now, what about paying it off? So when you pay it off, you don't get Hanukkah. You don't get the gifts. You don't get severance pay. You only get severance pay when the time was up and you bought, right? So you have now 4. What's Rav Shesh's kasha on Rish Lakish? His question is, if Rish Lakish is correct that you have also the death of her own father, should be 5. Yeah. Okay. And if Rish Lakish is correct, you should say also the death of the father. If Rish Lakish is correct, that's a way that the girl could go free. You should say that. Okay, you know how we'll answer this? We'll say that Reb Shimon said 4, but he wasn't saying all of them. He was just missing some. It says Varbaktani. You can't say that when you put a number in. You can't say there's 4 ways and say, but there's really more. If you don't have a number, then fine. But if you have a number, if you want to say that it's only things that have a schedule, the things that don't have a schedule, he didn't want to say. But what about the simanim, the puberty? That doesn't have a schedule. When Gemara answers, Rav Safra told me there is a schedule to simanim, to puberty. Why? Because there's a schedule when it can begin. Okay, so we have a good answer now. We have an answer that why does Reb Shimon only say 4? Because he wasn't talking about things that don't have a schedule. The death of the father is not on a schedule. Just 1 second, but when the 3rd one for the man, we were understanding was the death of the master for a Jewish slave that his ear was pierced. Goes free. Uktani, you see, it doesn't have a schedule when the master is going to die, and it says it. So why doesn't it say also the death of the father? It says Misasadan nami laiktani. It doesn't talk about the death of the master. So how do you get 4? So what are the 4? We thought the first 2 was 6 years, Yoivel, and the 3rd one would be the death of the master for the man, and the fourth one was simanim for the girl. So it says shanim the yovel shall ritzia. I have two yovels here. I have yovel for a regular evidivri. He's supposed to only work for 6 years, which he'll work for 6 years. But if the yovel comes in the middle, he goes free. Then I have the guy that his ear gets pierced. He's going to work for much more than 6 years. But whenever yovel comes, he goes free. So there's two yovels. So I have 6 years, yovel that comes within the 6 years, and I have a yovel that comes after the 6 years for the one whose ear was pierced. That's the three of the man. And the fourth one for the girl would be the simanim. So I don't even have a misa sa'adan. I don't have a death of the master. Why? Because it's not on the schedule. Amavriya b'simanim. Amavriya goes free with simanim. It says hachinam mistabra. This also is logical. The Tani Sefer, because in the end it says yat yachalayim arba be'echan miyam l'fishein simanim b'shvein utzia b'isha b'misa. If you're going to say that we're actually counting the death of the master, right? B'isha miyam mishkachas la'arba. 1 second. If the master dies by the woman, by the girl, she goes free also. So yeah, now you have two ways she goes free. Simanim and the death of the master. If you're going to count death of the master by the man, so I have death of the master by the girl as well. Even though, don't tell me, so I have 3 by the girl, right? I have 4 by the girl now. I have 6 years, yovel, death of the master, and puberty. 4 by the girl. You told me that there's only 3 by the girl. So it must be that we're not counting the death of the master. So how do we get 4 by the? How do we get 3 for the man? Because we had a yovel for the regular slave, and then we had a yovel for the other slave, plus the 6 years. Okay. What comes out? Shema Mina. We see clearly that we weren't talking about things that have a schedule, and that's why it's not a kasha and Rish Lakish. Why kasha and Rish Lakish was, why doesn't it say the death of the girl's father? That would set her free. The answer is because we weren't talking about anything that wasn't on the schedule. What about the death of the master? We weren't talking about that either. Okay. Masav Rav Amram. Ram has a question. And these are get the severance pay. Ayetze b'shanim, someone that goes free because of 6 years gets severance pay. Ubi yovel, someone that goes free by the yovel. Ubi misa sa'adan, someone goes free because of the death of the master. V'amavriya b'simanim, and the amavriya gets severance pay when she goes free because she reached puberty. V'misa, and if Rish Lakish is correct, if there is to Rish Lakish validity, nisni nami misa sa'av, let it also say that when the father dies, the girl goes free and she gets severance pay. If you're going to say that maybe this wasn't an exhaustive list, this was just a list of what came to mind. But it says these are, which means that it's giving me an exhaustive list. Maybe you'll tell me it's only giving me a list of things that have a schedule. But puberty doesn't have a schedule. Simanim does have a schedule, right? Because it has a schedule of when it can start. But what about one of the things you said was the death of the master. The inheritors have to give severance pay. Tifta the Rish Lakish. This is a very strong question on Rish Lakish. It's a very strong question. It's supposed to be read like this. Tifta the Rish Lakish. Does this mean it's a strong question on Rish Lakish? And the Gemara answers yes. Tifta, it's a strong question on Rish Lakish. 1 second. Yeah.
Gemara's question is based on the understanding of Rish Lakish, where Misa Sa'av occurs after he's been sold.
After
She's been sold.
Yeah, well, if there's no, the brothers can't sell it.
Exactly. That's the point of the Talmud, right? He dies, she can't be sold in the first place. She now exits the domain of everybody.
I went to this
Okay. So if you understand Misa Sa'av to occur before she's sold, and Talmud follows, then none of these questions make any sense.
If Misa Sa'av, 1 second. Let me just make sure I understand. What was the Kal V'Chomer? Kal V'Chomer is if Simanim don't get her out of her father's domain, but get her out of the master. So the death of the father, which gets her out of her father's domain, because the brothers don't inherit, for sure should get her out of the master.
Right.
So what are you asking?
So the Gemara's question follows: the death of the father is only after she's been sold. But if your Shakish understood to mean the death of the father before she gets sold,
No. Why would you say that?
why wouldn't you say that?
No, we're only talking about what gets her out of the sale
But it gets her out of domains.
domain.
So if the father dies, then she can't be sold. She's no longer in the
If
father's
the father
domain.
dies, she's no longer in the
anyone's domain.
right. She's no longer in the father's domain.
So
So
it exits
if-
her.
If which is good. If the father's death gets her out of the father's domain, so for sure it should get her out of the master's domain. That's
Yeah,
good
not
Kal
that he
V'Chomer.
dies after she's sold, because now she's no longer in his domain. What difference does it make after she's sold? It's like saying, let's say she got married and then he dies. She's not married anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly what Rish Lakish is saying. If
That doesn't make sense.
What you're asking is why don't we extend the Kal V'Chomer to a marriage? That's what you're asking.
No, if you're going to say that the death of the father occurs after she's exited his domain to someone else's, and still he retains some kind of ownership over her, that if he dies, she exits, then you can extend it also to marriage. However, if you're talking about where he dies before she's left his domain, then there's all these questions.
So Taisus on the bottom. Taisus on the bottom says, "Im timer took chuppah techiach, shemitzim mishus avia ve'in mitzim mishus adam."
Which is why I decided to
I'm sorry?
question, which is what got me the idea that the whole Gemara's assumption is based on something that doesn't make sense.
Let's see what the Gemara says, because the Gemara is going to go through the Kal V'Chomer now. Yeah.
When you
Never
use
mind.
the pronoun
So,
you, it has to be you guys.
Barish Lakish Kal V'Chomer Amar.
Say you, it's you guys.
You is plural.
Barish Lakish Kal V'Chomer Kamar. But Rish Lakish gave us a Kal V'Chomer. The Gemara says Kal V'Chomer Prichahi. It's a weak Kal V'Chomer. Mishum Dikla Mifrach, because why is it a weak Kal V'Chomer? It says like this. When it comes to signs of puberty, so she goes from one category of a person to another category of a person. She goes from a minor to an adult. So it goes from a minor to a major. So she has signs of majority, right? Is that a word? Majority?
Yeah.
So she goes from a minor to a major. So if Simanim change her from one status to another status, that doesn't mean the father's death doesn't change it. So what happens over here is that the reason why she goes free by Simanim is because the master had purchased a minor. He had not purchased an adult. When she becomes an adult, she becomes a different person. Going to say the death of the father, but I purchased someone that has a father and now she doesn't have a father, so now I didn't purchase her. That has nothing to do with this. The reason why Simanim works is because the person that was purchased is a different person now. It's not me. Someone else. So the whole Kal V'Chomer is based on that there's a similarity between Simanim and Misas Av. There's really no similarity. The Simanim work totally different than Misas Av. Okay.
Simanim, we're referring to
Yes.
the changes in puberty.
Yeah.
We're not referring to menarche, the first period.
Whoa.
It's two
Don't
different things.
throw a doctor term at us. We don't know what menarche is.
This is the signs of puberty, the hairs, pubic hairs.
So,
Yeah.
and it's the final stage. I mean,
Yeah.
then they're usually the same, but it could be different. We're just talking about this.
We know you're a
Yes,
doctor. You don't.
That's why it was a little confusing to me. Thank you.
Okay.
If the point about puberty is that the body changes, then this would apply to a boy as well.
So you're saying if a Jewish boy was sold under 12, which we don't do, it can't be an Avidivri under 12. No, you only have it by a girl. How would he become a slave under 12? Under 13?
Sells himself.
He doesn't have the rights to do that.
You're saying that under 12 you can't make a kinyan? at all?
No, not really. But together with the father or whatever, but there's no such thing.
Finds that he's 13 without it.
No, the 13 without simanim means that he's not bar mitzvah. Yeah. Okay. It's like you can squeeze a question out of that. You only become bar mitzvah when you have. So why don't we check everyone? Well, for the rabbanans, we rely on that they properly reach puberty, and for the raisas, we actually check. So if you're going to use someone to write a letter in the Sefer Torah, you're probably going to ask him if he has. Anyway, or if you see something on the face, a little here, that would be good. Tanichada. One brisa says, we're going to have a contradiction between brises. Tanichada, anak eved ivri la'atzmai. Who keeps the severance pay? The eved ivri keeps it. That's obvious. The Gemara is going to ask that soon. Anak ama ivri la'atzma. What about the girl? She goes free. Who keeps that? She keeps it. Very good. Tani Yidach, there's another brisa that says, anak ama ivri mitziasa la'aviyah. The severance pay that the Amavriya gets, and if she finds an item on the floor, a lost item, Lavia, her father gets it. So her father gets the severance pay and those items. And let's say she finds something, doesn't go to the master. What does the master get? If she finds an item and she's a slave of the master, turns out that the father keeps that item. So what does the master get from her being a slave? Well, because while picking it up, that was taking some of her time that she was supposed to be doing work for him. So the master gets that wasted time, gets paid for that time. So the father would keep the item and would have to pay for the loss of time. My love, okay. We're going back to Rish Lakish. We're not done with it. Say, why do we have two brises? One of them says that the father gets the severance pay. One of them says that she gets the severance pay. It must be that the one that she gets the severance pay is because she doesn't have a father. And the one that the father gets the severance pay because she does have. So how did it work? How did she go free and she still has a father? That's because she got free with puberty. How did she go free without the father? That's because the father passed away. She goes free. Rish Lakish is correct. You have a brisa that supports Rish Lakish. Where it says lie, you have no proof for that. You have no proof at all. It sounded good, but there's no proof. There's a huge flaw in that logic. And the flaw is like this, that both of them set her free with simanim. Like kasha, but it's still not a problem. You didn't show that she went free because the father died. You just showed that there's no father. That doesn't mean that's how she got free. She got free because she reached puberty. Could be the father died already and she's still a slave. But because there was no father, so she keeps it. And the other one, the father's still alive, so he keeps it. Follow? It's a great logic piece that it almost was perfect until you realize that there was no proof for that. Okay. Now says, I get what the brisa meant when it says that the Amavriya keeps the severance pay because we want to say that the brothers do not get the severance pay. In other words, the inheritors of the father do not keep it. It's either the father or her. The Tanya, because we started in a brisa, a regular slave, you inherit to your descendants afterwards. Only those slaves, the non-Jewish slaves, that get inherited, but your daughters do not get inherited to the sons. In other words, the father that has the rights to the daughter's income and all of that does not go over to the sons that they now inherited the rights to their sister's income. A person does not bequeath the rights that he has to his daughter's income to the children or anything else that he has the rights to his daughter. What are you telling? What are you telling me that the severance pay of a Jewish slave, he keeps it? Of course he keeps it. He's an adult. Who do you want to give it to? Al-Laman. Who are you expecting to give it to? Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said, Yud karas kachazina hacha. This is an expression. It's not a common expression, but this says a little letter Yud has just turned into a big city, which means that we started off saying that halacha or the Amma Evriya, but in order to fill it into a full paragraph, we added in also the Eved Ivri gets keeps it himself, just to fill it in. This is you have one chiddush, but you write a whole book for the chiddush. That's what his expression is. Now that's one pshat in this. There's another pshat. Rab Yosef Karas, Rab Yosef Yud Karas, Rab Yosef of Yud Karas says. I'm not sure what the English translate. What do they say in English? Do they say that it's the name of a place? That's his name, Rab Yosef Yud Karas. Yeah, they have they quote the Goin. Yosef Demin Yud Karas, that there's actually a source for that. And what would he be saying according to that? Kachazina hacha. I don't know what he's saying then, according to the Maseres Hashas. What is this? I'm not sure. I don't know how to translate it according to that. Okay. Abaya Amar Abaya has another answer. Hachi Amar Rav Sheshes. So says Rav Sheshes. Hamani, who is this opinion? This is Tutai. This is the opinion of Tutai. Do they have anything about Tutai? They don't say anything.
The
Sage. Okay. The Tanya Tutai Yomer was taught in the Bryce. Tutai says, we mentioned this before a few days ago, that there's something called the din of Reb Nassan. That if one person owes another person money and that person owes a third person money, that they can pass the money from the first person to the third person, which would mean that the master owes money to the slave and the slave owes money to someone else. You don't say that, well, according to Reb Nassan, you would say that the money goes to the third person. But according to this brisa, we're saying that the money does not go to the third person to exclude the case of Reb Nassan. You don't say this by severance pay, that the slave gets the money and not the one that he owes. That's what we're trying to say. Okay, Gufa. Let's go back and discuss something that was mentioned before. Elu manikim lem. These are Masechtas Kiddushin. Gufa is not a miraim. So far, there's our third example in this Masechta where Gufa is not used the way we have it in the rest of Shas. Okay, in Shabbos we saw it also, but usually a Amar Mar would be Tanoim and Gufa is Amiraim. These are the ones that get the severance pay. Someone that goes out because the 6 years are up. The Yovel, they go out because the Jubilee came. The Misa Sadin, they go out because the master died. That was a slave the ear was pierced, or the Amevriya. Amevriya b'simanim. Amevriya could go out by puberty. Aval b'reyach, but someone that escapes the Yetzi b'garan kesef, and someone that pays their way free, they give money. Ein man likin lai. They don't get any severance pay. Meir Aimer. Yeah.
When he goes out at 6 years, he doesn't need a star, right? At the beginning of Mishnah,
Right, does not need a star.
That's only for preterm.
Yeah. Reb Meir says, "Beireach ein manikim lai, v'yetz b'garan kesem manikim lai." Reb Meir says that someone that escapes does not get severance pay, but someone that goes free because of he paid him his way free, then he does get the severance pay. Reb Shimon Aimer, Abba manikim. This is what we quoted before. Reb Shimon says there's 4 people that get Hanaka, the severance pay. Shleisha b'ish, Gimel b'isha. There's 3 by a man. There's 3 by a woman. You can't say that there's 4 by either of them. Because the man doesn't have the signs of puberty because he's not sold as a child. And you don't have the making the hole in the ear by the woman. Okay. Now the Gemara says, how do we know that? How did each one of these opinions get their opinion from. Well, the Tanur Rabbana was taught in a brisa. Another brisa is going to explain this brisa. Maybe the pasuk says that you give the hanaka, you give the severance pay to someone that goes free by 6 years. How do you know those other cases that also get severance pay? If the jubilee or the death of the master, the amavriya with puberty. You send her, and when you send him, and when you send him. So that what is it? What do we see from that? It says it twice. It's coming to tell me that there's other times that when they go free, that they get severance pay. You have an inclusion. Maybe it's also coming to include if the person escapes the slave, you should also get severance pay. Or if he pays his way free, you should also get severance pay. Give him the money back too. They exchange money back and forth. And we send him free from you. That's only when he's sent from you. That's excluding someone that escapes and someone that goes free because he paid his way free. That's not considered that he was sent from you, which means midaita. It wasn't from your intention. He bought his way free. It wasn't you sending him free. When you send him free, that's when you have to give him. Not when like someone quits their job, they don't get severance pay. When their job ends or they get fired, they get severance pay. That's so me'imach means it's only from your intention, not if they got their way out. But we're using the me'imach. No, but it doesn't matter what it says. No, it doesn't matter. What do you mean both? Both what?
Both times it says it says
Good. So when it says me'imach, it's coming to exclude when the guy buys his way free. It's not midaita.
When it gets free because of the years, one time it's talking about hanek lai.
So good. So the hanek tanek lai, and when he goes free from the years, both of them, you get it says me'imach, which both of them tell me that you only go free, you only get the hanaka when it goes free with your intention, not when he goes free with when he does it. When the slave buys his way free, when the slave escapes, it has to be coming from you. Right? That's what the word me'imach is telling me. So how did you want to learn it?
I don't understand what people are talking about.
No, me'imach means midaitach, right? Me'imach means from you with your intention. So you only get the severance pay when it goes free, when you're with your intention. Exactly what the pasuk says. Meir Eimer. Now we have to go back to explain each of those opinions. Meir Eimer. When he's sent free, ein man niken lai. Not sent free. When he escapes, you don't give him severance pay. Dein shiluchim imach, because that you didn't send them with your intention. However, but when he buys his way free, you're actually sending him out. He's paying for the extra time, but that's considered with your intention. So that's going to be good. Okay. So that's a machlekes from Meir and the Tanna Kama. The Gemara says, 1 second. When he escapes, I guess we should stop here because it's getting late. We'll leave it on the bottom. Can we learn this evening? We'll have to learn because we have to catch up. I think we're 2 pages behind now. So we'll try to do at least one of them this evening after Ma'ariv, which will be today's Thursday, right? So it should be about 8:15, 8:20. Yeah, about 8:20. 8:20, 8:30 probably.
Is it okay, Naftali?
Naftali? That's good.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
8:30?
8:30, yeah. We'll put it on Zoom. Okay.